Hello and welcome to another Thursday Live with me, Dr. Jen Dipati. Yes, we are very, very sorry for the delay. As often, we have some technical issues that we have to navigate when it comes to the network streaming live on YouTube. Yes, I already see we have two people here. Sorry for keeping you waiting. I know that this is a very, very, very pertinent topic. That is why, regardless of the challenges we encounter, when it comes to streaming live, we never give up. Yes, I believe that today's session is worth the wait. It is worth, toughing it out with the challenges to ensure that nothing stops this session today. Hey, if you are here, I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for joining me. Please ensure that you get someone else to join the session today. We are going to be talking about one of the challenges that parents are facing today, one of the issues that parents are faced with that requires them to be able to make decisions knowledgeably, right? So this is a session that would benefit your sister, would benefit your brother, would benefit your family members, your church members, no matter where you're from, whatever community you belong to. I encourage you to share the link to this particular session and invite some other parents to join in, because this is the topic of the hour. This is the topic that we should be talking a lot more about, because social media is here to stay. It's in our faces, and every day we see children making a mess of themselves on social media platforms. We see children who are getting sucked in by different trends. There's so many trends today on social media. Today this one is trending, tomorrow the other one is trending. But the big question that every parent must ask themselves is, how does this impact my child? What is the influence that this trend, that this being on this space has on my child? Right? Is there a consequence? What will be the outcome of the decisions I'm making today on my child? Right? Because the thing is, in the spur of a moment, it's very easy to forget that if you choose to eat or not eat today, it's going to reflect on how you look 10, 20 years down the line. So every single decision that you're making as a parent, even those you're making in the spur of a moment, will have long-term consequences. And social media is one of those areas that you really want to put on your spectacles, right? You want to look closely in before you make certain decisions. You want to ensure that you have the facts, that you have, what you need to know before you're deciding. It's very common, like I shared in my intro post. It's very common to find kids as young as 5 years old, right, scrolling through TikTok on their parents' phone. TikTok is one of the most common platforms where I think I've seen kids just idly scrolling through. I think it's very popular. I think it's one of the most popular social media platforms for children, right? There are so many children on that space. It's becoming, should I say, very accessible, because we see lots and lots of children not only having their own accounts, making and sharing their own content, but we have children who have access to their parents' phones, who have access to their own phones, and have access to these social media platforms on those devices. Is that a wise decision? That's the question we are here to answer today. All right. Is it wise for your child to have direct access to YouTube, to have direct access to TikTok, to be on Instagram or on Facebook, just idly scrolling through? What are the risks? What are the long-term effects of having your child do something like this? It's very easy for us to sit down and say, there's nothing to learn about parenting. Today, learn parenting. These are the things, these are the conversations that actually help you be better at your parenting. All right. It's not about teaching you how to feed and clothe your child. Nobody needs to teach you that. Well, even though there are some people who still need to be taught that. But learning is supposed to be continuous in every field of life, but especially parenting, because it affects every other area of life. All right. So when we talk about learning, these are some of the conversations that we need to have more often, because the digital devices, social media platforms are only increasing in number. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. So what we must do to help us raise children who are competent, who can thrive, is learn how to navigate these spaces, is learn for ourselves first as parents, to learn the facts, learn, what you need to know as a parent to help you guide your child. Because how can you guide a child when you yourself don't even know what you need to know? There's so many parents who are very oblivious about what social media can even be used for. They are oblivious about the power, the influence of social media today. If you're a parent, for example, and you have you're doing business and you don't think it's relevant to put it on social media, that already tells you how oblivious you are of the power of social media in this day and age. So imagine with that kind of oblivion that you take your child, you hand your child a device and you don't even bother to contemplate on whether or not to give them access to social media. So this conversation today is not really about the phone, because we've had conversations in the past about, what age should you give your child a phone. I don't know if there's anybody here who caught that session, but we're probably going to have that session again during the long holidays, because that is a period when this issue is going to come up again it's going to be a major issue of concern, the issue of handing children phones or buying children their own mobile devices. But today we're focusing on social media. Right, we're focusing on social media. If you're just joining here for the first time, if you've never tuned in for any of our Thursday lives, so I am Dr. Jen, and this is Thursday Live with me, Dr. Jen. We are going to be talking about purposeful parenting every Thursday. We gather here to share on different aspects of purposeful parenting. Today, our focus is social media and children, costly mistakes that parents must avoid. What are those mistakes that you are likely to make unless you pay attention, unless you are being purposeful in your approach? So this topic might seem small, again, because you might be telling yourself, but my child has been on this thing, my child always goes to TikTok and I don't see, how it's affecting the child. I don't think it's having any impact on the child as you are trying to portray us, or as I'm trying to say. All right. Is there any harm letting my child just watch comedy on TikTok? Because that's usually what kids are scrolling through their parents' phones doing. Some parents actually even consume some of these comedy skits with their children. Kids as young as 5. There are kids as young as 5 who probably know more comedians on TikTok than I do. Who probably know more influencers on TikTok than I do, because they are often on those spaces consuming the content with their parent. Is there any long-term consequence to these kinds of decisions? Right? Is there any long-term consequence? Again, imagine you have a 5-year-old just going from video to video on TikTok. Scroll through one, laugh, scroll to the next one, laugh. And mind you, these are not animated videos. These are actually adults who are cracking jokes meant for adults, because most of these comedians, crack jokes that are rated for adults. They are jokes that have sometimes sexualized content or some insinuations that are meant for adults. And yet you have a child who is scrolling through these spaces in the name of it's just comedy. It's just meant to make people laugh. Recently, I visited someone casually to I think to share an invitation for the conference that recently passed. And while I was there, I noticed that now most people have smart TVs in their phone. So it has gone beyond just scrolling through social media on the phone. There are some people who are doing it on their TV screens, right? It's now possible to actually scroll through social media on certain TV screens. So I at this person's place, there was a very large TV screen, and the kids were going through TikTok. They were going through videos. I don't know. I think YouTube. Sorry, YouTube, not TikTok. YouTube on the TV, watching different skits. And it's what is really painful about experiencing how casual parents are being today is because they don't understand how small moments like this can change a child's reasoning, way of thinking for life. How it can negatively influence the way a child's perception of things is. There are certain comedy skits that children have no business watching. Because while you, an adult, might understand that it is just a joke, when a child is constantly exposed to these kinds of content, they have difficulties on separating reality from just a joke. To the point where some of these videos that we have kids watching and we're telling ourselves, it's just a child, doesn't even know what he's watching. And that's exactly the reason why they shouldn't be watching it, because they don't really understand the scope, the context of that kind of comedy, of that kind of joke. So when we are casual about the kinds of things that we're exposing children to, we are simply putting our children in harm's way because we are exposing them to ideologies, to content, right, to ideas, to mindsets, to ways of thinking that is far beyond their realm. It's far beyond their was far beyond their capacity to differentiate between this is reality, this is just a joke. This is just a joke. So it has now become the what parents are using to keep kids busy in public spaces. Social media is instant entertainment. I keep saying it that adults are struggling with social media today. So you can imagine how tough it must be for children who are already there early on. It's very common today to see children who have accounts on social media platforms that are followed by millions of people, and they're just children. They have not even yet reached 10. There are several kids that are on social media platforms. There are kids who are on social media platforms, different videos on, sharing content. Their parents are sharing content of them on a daily basis. This child's face is already out there. They are already popular before they can even understand how to make decisions for themselves. These are the realities that we are facing today. There are children who are creating, I think I've come across some secondary school kids, who constantly share content on Facebook. I think they're francophones, constantly sharing content on Facebook. They actually have their own handles and everything, and their following is growing. Most of the times, you really see their immaturity come through. The risk is the fact that as an adult, I can understand the repercussions of sharing certain things that are private for me as an adult, right? I am actually in a position where I could easily be able to understand that, hey, if I choose to share this thing about myself today, this is how it can affect me 10 years down the line. But when you take a 15-year-old who is just entering, the peak of puberty or their teenage years, and they are still having that mind, that brain that is underdeveloped, that is not yet able to fully judge a situation, and yet you have a child who's on social media and is completely carried away by the monetization. That's the thing that is making people lose their sanity today. Monetization. So even before we can answer the question about whether our children should be on social media or not, money has been added to the equation. They've now added the money factor to it. You see people, adults, who are sharing stuff that can make you, their family member, be embarrassed. Like, whoa. That's just how crazy it is on social media these days. People are sharing anything and everything shareable. I believe a time will come when privacy will be so expensive. It will be so expensive because already the lines are blurred. People are sharing even what's happening in the bedroom. Nothing seems to be off limits. You can barely even sometimes you can even walk into an establishment or walk into a place and somebody's shooting content and you are in that content. You are part of the content. So a time is coming when you will not even get to, we are going to be able to see far more than we are seeing today. Because so long as money has been added to the equation, values go out the window. Rules don't even seem to exist anymore. Because now we have people sharing just anything and everything. Now, imagine adults struggling to understand that this can or cannot be shared. So you can imagine how it's going to be like for children. How it's going to be like for children. Remember the case of I think a 14 or 15-year-old boy in the US who committed suicide because of the threat of something personal of his being shared on the social media space. We are getting into the heat of that particular era. This is only the beginning. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. I've seen videos on social media between children, children who are now dissing each other, insulting each other. It's a back and forth. In fact, it's a whole war between kids age 12, 13, 14. And they're on social media every day in their parents' homes. Their parents are aware. Some of these parents have given their consent. Go ahead. Why? It is a source of income now. It's a source of income. And for some reason, whatever children are involved in seems to sell more. So you're going to think that the following that you're getting on social media, it's because people are like, oh, telling you, whoa, this is great, keep going, keep going. Not realizing that you are trading your child's childhood. You're trading something that your child does not yet have the understanding, to even be able to make a decision about. You're already trading that. You're already trading that. So we're getting to the era where what people are sharing on social media, the conversation is going to be about values, it's going to be about integrity, it's going to be about, because once money is involved, most people don't think anymore. They don't think anymore, you know. So if we're going to raise children that will thrive, we're going to raise children that will not cause you embarrassment on social media tomorrow, you must start having these conversations today. It's not when the child will be 18 that you're going to have the conversation. It's not when the child will already be, at the age of independence, where they are now their own, in charge of themselves, looking after their own selves, that you start having these conversations. It's going to be late then. Every time I come up with sessions like this and I teach parents, one of the things I always get in my inbox is parents who already have kids that are maybe 21, 18, that are really, have really been in charge of their own devices for a long time. And they're now coming back to say, oh my God, so I didn't consider these things before I introduced my child into this space. What can I do? Yeah, there's always something you can do from every level. Because wherever you come into contact with knowledge, there is always something you can do from that point moving forward. So there are challenges when it comes to raising children today in this digital age that parents have to face. And you don't face a challenge with assumptions. You face challenges with knowledge, with strategies to help you be able to win. One of the prime challenges we're facing today in this social media age is pressure from peers. I can't tell you how many parents reach out to me to ask me, my child is 13, their class has a group, maybe on WhatsApp or a group here or there, and they do assignments there, they do group study, and my child is pressuring me to get them a phone and put them on social media. So most parents wait until they get to these pressure points before they are trying to decide. At that point, you're vulnerable. When you wait until the pressure mounts, you're already vulnerable because you did not have a plan. Whenever you meet with pressure without a plan, without preparation, it's easy for you to just go with the flow. And usually that flow will end you in a place that you probably did not want to be because you didn't plan for it. You didn't anticipate that this kind of challenge would come up. As a parent raising a child today, you must expect your child to encounter pressure, about their social media presence, or about, digital devices, and you must have prepared for that. That's why it's important to have these strategies, to know what you're doing. I remember when I taught this on this subject for parents on the DR365 program. One of the things we do is help them set up a family media plan guide, to set up a family media plan, using the guide provided to help them be able to prepare for situations like this. A child who is prepared for certain pressures they might face has a greater chance of being able to navigate that phase successfully without making foolish mistakes. Think about some of the things that you struggled with as a teenager. Imagine that you had someone who had already prepared you that you're going to feel like having a boyfriend, you're going to feel like, having sex, you're going to feel like that has prepared you with the realities of what you will encounter, and then help you with strategies that when you come across these things, this is how you can navigate them. That is what it means to purposefully parenting. That's what it means. It's not waiting until crisis comes and start running up and down like a chicken with no head. It's understanding that you're going to face these difficulties. These things will. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You're going to face them. The question is, what is your plan? How prepared are you? How prepared are you? That's why being in community is also very important. When some of these parents I work with reach out to me with their personal challenges, it's easy because there's already a background of knowledge that they have gotten, and you can quickly say, okay, we learned about this. Go here, check this, do this, do this. Okay, you shared your plan with me. Now I can help you navigate based on what you have already been working on. Based on what you've already been working on. So before we decide to give our kids access, we must understand the risks that come with it, because it is not without risk. Giving a child access to the internet is giving the world access to your child, whether you like it or not. Put any kinds of locks and guides you want, right? They call them how do they call them? Parental control stuff. You know, so long as you're giving your child access to the internet, the world can have access to your child. That's what it means. So no matter how big a hawk, there are parents who pride themselves in being hawks. I see everything the child is doing. I'm always checking everything the child is doing. That is not a strategy. That strategy will fail you in this day and age, because you are raising a child who is a native, was born and bred in the digital age. Every time I've had parents who reach out to me and they're telling me about, oh, my child has a device, but this is what I'm doing. And I try to help them see, the areas where their where their child is potentially vulnerable. They are usually adamant, to want to accept the possibility that their foolproof protection plan can actually have holes. Somehow we are more comfortable when we are parenting in denial. When we are parenting, we tell ourselves, oh, this kind of thing cannot happen to my child. God forbid. God forbid, my child is a good child. My child is a good boy. It is not about goodness. It's about skillfulness. Because you can be good and still be foolish when you encounter a situation that you've not been prepared for. It's not about goodness. It's about skillfulness. That's what makes the difference. A child that will navigate untainted, a child that will preserve their integrity online and offline, is a child who is equipped with skills. It's not about goodness. It's not about goodness. When we go to the mistakes, you're going to see one of the capital mistakes parents make is giving responsibility based on assumptions. My child is a good boy. He's not going to look at pornography. My child is a good boy. Most of the times, kids stumble upon these things by error. And because they're not prepared, they get hooked on it. So it's not a problem of goodness. Goodness is not the problem here. Neither is intention the issue. Because you're giving your child a phone not to kill the child. You have good intentions. You're giving your child access to social media because you don't want them to be left out. Again, you have good intentions. But that is not enough. Your intentions can be the best that they can be out there. But your approach is where there is a problem. What you don't know, your ignorance is the problem. Not the intention. The intention is always good. The intention is always good. I tell parents often that when you don't have a plan and a well-meaning uncle or auntie gifts your child a phone, your 15-year-old son, maybe you never plan to give them a phone until maybe they are probably, most parents go by age, which is something I also strongly discourage. But that's not the conversation for today, right? So you have a well-meaning uncle, and let's say your child goes on holidays this holiday, and on coming back, uncle auntie has gifted them a phone, and now it becomes the beginning of a new struggle. The phone is there, auntie, you already prepared for that. The tendency will be you might yourself just succumbing. Why? Auntie is pressuring you. But let him use it now. All his friends have it. What's your problem? Why are you being old-fashioned? Why are you being old-fashioned? Why are you standing in the way of these boys? All of that. It's their generation, it's their thing. And the child at that point will give you all kinds of problems. Mama, I promise I would this, I promise I would that. It's not about the child's goodness at that point. Those promises are not the problem. The problem is, does this child have the skills to enable them use this thing in a positive way instead of allowing it become a source of destruction? That's the question. I can't tell you how many children have gotten hooked on pornography when it all started with good intentions and assumptions. So that's always a starting point. It's not an issue of goodness, I beg you. It's not about how much you can, God forbid. We try to, God forbid, to the point where even when you're trying to educate someone, we now have the tendency to, God forbid, even education. You cannot, God forbid, yourself. You cannot, God forbid, a situation that is meant to be remedied by knowledge, with prayers even. You can't remedy ignorance with just prayers. wisdom is a function of knowledge. Wisdom is a function of knowledge because wisdom is knowledge applied the right way. It's a function of knowledge. So it starts with you, first of all, knowing what do you know? Because what you don't know will always be a potential trap for you. What you don't know will always be a potential trap for you. So before you decide to give access, always understand the risk. If not, you are throwing your child in a river full of crocodiles. That's what the internet is. Even for adults, it's not a safe space. It's not a safe space. We navigate in the social media platforms, and we somehow don't notice the adults who are lamenting of having lost millions. Adults who are lamenting of private information, about them leaking on social media. And we think that these things cannot affect children. Oh, it can. It can. There are children today who are putting out information on these social media spaces that will come back tomorrow to haunt them. One of the dangers of this social media era is the fact that the internet never forget. It doesn't matter whether you delete it. The internet does not forget. You see these people, these kids who are having, sex tapes leaking out. If these same people want to, go to certain positions, there are certain places that this particular information will come back to haunt them. There are certain things that kids are putting out online today, racist comments, and you're thinking that it's just a child. The child is just going on. You don't know what your child is doing online. There are parents who are not aware of the kind of person their child is online. You're only seeing the goodness in person. And your child is busy oversharing information about themselves, about your family, making statements they have no business making because they think, remember, children, one of the things about children is the fact that they have that inability to really think long term. That's one of the limitations that their brains have. A child is more about the moment, the now. Children are not that's why they need adults. That's why they need adults as parents. That's why kids have no business being parents. Because a child, by nature, by virtue of their brain development, is not able to really forecast. That's why it's a skill that you must begin to develop in your child, helping them learn how to think beyond the now, to ask themselves questions. But most of us are not teaching these things. We are so busy trying to decide everything for them. We're not teaching them these things. And yet, we have children on the social media space making comments, and they're just having fun being youths, right? You don't realize that your child might make a statement, might bully somebody online, and that thing will come back 10 years later at the peak of that child's life to hunt that child down. To hunt them down. So I'm going to be sharing with you 5 mistakes that parents must look out for when it comes to social media and children today. 5 mistakes. And these mistakes not only affect development, social skills, but also can impact even the child's work tomorrow, right? What the child is meant to do. It impacts their social ability and all of that. We're going to look at the mistakes that you must avoid. All right. Recently, there have been some videos and pictures of I think a teenager. It looks like a teenager of a pastor's daughter. Going everywhere on social media. I think from another African country. It's one of the every now and then we have these scandals coming up. But what bothers me is the fact that at first, most scandals had to do only with adults, right? We didn't get to see much of these issues of leaked stuff involving children. But now it's as if for every 5 adult scandals, there's at least 2 or 3 that involves children. Dreadful things involving children. Children acting inappropriately, filming it and putting it online. You see, when you notice the trends among adults, where you see adults who are being desperate for likes, to the point where they are talking all kind of nonsense, sharing all kinds of personal details just because they want to get the likes. You realize that people in this social media age are beginning to measure their self-worth by the number of likes that they are getting. Now, I want to address even adults here, right? There are times when you post on social media and you find yourself going back to check the number of likes, and somehow if you're not a person who is psychologically grounded, you might find yourself seeping into a state where you begin to measure how loved you are or how accepted you are based on the response that you've gotten from a post. That's an adult, right? With all their years of experience. Now imagine a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old who is still finding out about who they are even on this earth and what they are here to do, who is at that stage where they are vulnerable to influence. They are vulnerable, they are sensitive about maybe their body, their looks. When people go through puberty, they go through a stage where they become very self-conscious of their looks, what people think about them and all of that. And that is the stage. Imagine at this vulnerable stage of a child's life, that is the stage where you are putting them in a space, or you're allowing them into a space where adults are struggling to avoid depression just by being in that space. That's where a child is being introduced. Now, what happens to that? Let's just take the example of a young girl. So you have a young girl who is just beginning to, puberty, her body features just beginning to come out. She's beginning to, she's finding her identity. And then she goes online, and all the images of what beautiful is seems to portray what she's not. There's a certain narrative of what society accepts as beautiful, as acceptable. Those celebrity posts where you see people altering their bodies. There's now BBL is becoming the most popular thing. And we are thinking that these things it doesn't concern us. It doesn't. You are not able to connect these trends with the child who is still establishing their identity, and they're already on that space with you, watching these trends. You don't understand just how it is impacting how that child thinks about themselves, their self-image. It has an impact. It has an impact. Think about the cartoon that you spend most of your time watching as a child. It had an impact on you. What you thought was cool, what was not cool, how people are dressing, what people are calling beautiful. And the children are spending too much time on these spaces that makes the influence of these spaces very, very potent on them. That's what makes the influence powerful. One of the things I asked myself, I've been reflecting on over the past 24 hours, has been the fact that every single scandal, whether it is sex related or just, violence or something, every single scandal that we are seeing today can be connected to the kind of content that children are consuming. It can be connected to it. You can find links to how much time kids are spending in the unreal world, because the social media space is not the real world. People come there to just share small pieces of their life, which usually it is a well-managed narrative of their life on that space. And yet a child will take that and believe that this is what it's supposed to be like. This is how a woman's body that is beautiful should look like. She must have buttocks like this. She must have breasts like that. Her face must be like this. And your child starts planning to alter their body before they even hit 18. Starts hating how they look like. Self-hate. Because the space where they are spending a lot of time has taught them that this is what is beautiful. This is what beauty looks like. Your waist must be like this. Your buttocks must be this way. That's what's beautiful. Then you see the number of comments under that post. Everybody's worshiping that person. Wow, you're so beautiful. Look at your this. Look at your that. And you think that it doesn't have an influence on the perception that your girl child has of herself. So again, before you tell yourself that it doesn't matter, mind you, your perspective as an adult and that of a child are not the same thing. While you might understand this is just a celebrity, they are just doing this because maybe, for one reason or another, maybe because of their job, maybe because of, an adult may rationalize it that way. But a young girl of 13, 14, who is just beginning to blossom, will not interpret it in that way. They might end up concluding to themselves that I cannot be beautiful until I do what these people are doing. Where does a 15-year-old, 14-year-old girl get the idea to enter into an orgy with 5 different boys? Where are they getting the ideas from? Does that idea just fall from the sky into a person's head? These are ideas that they are plucking from different places. They are plucking it from different places. So let's talk about the 5 mistakes before we run out of time. All right. The very first mistake that parents are making today when it comes to social media and children is assuming responsibility or assuming goodness, right? And giving blind trust. So many parents are giving blind trust. Why? My child is a good boy. He cannot do that kind of thing. My daughter is a good girl. Cannot do that kind of thing. Mind you, yes, your child might be good, right? Yeah, I don't even know what you're calling good because a foolish brain is a foolish brain. When I talk of foolish brain, I mean if you understand that the reason why a child is called a child is because their brain is immature and the brain is the faculty where decisions are being made. So if a person's judgment faculty is not yet fully developed, they are prone to making foolish decisions. So it's not about whether they are good or not, it's whether they are skillful or not. It's whether you have equipped them or not. It's whether you have prepared them or not. That is the conversation that matters. It's not about, my child has never done this. My child is always a good girl, always doing her chores. It's not, it's master. It's not about chores. It's not about chores. It's not about your child's amount of goodness according to your scale. That's not the conversation. That's not where your focus should be. The issue should be, can my child handle this responsibility? Are they ready? Because access to social media is a responsibility. Because whatever actions your child takes on that space is going to have repercussions. Most of them will be long-lasting repercussions, long-lasting consequences. So many of us assume that once we allow our kids use our devices or even sign them up with their own accounts, everything will be okay. The child it's not a child that causes problems. The child is doing very well in school. The child is an all-round good boy, good girl. I don't see any reason why I should be afraid of giving them access to social media. Again, think about everything I've just said. All right. How the things they are scrolling through on social media, the message that their mind, their subconscious is picking up that helps shape how they see themselves and how they see the world. Those are the concerns you should be having. Those are the conversations you should be having. How is this shaping who my child will turn out to be? What my child will believe about their world? Now, I must talk about the boy child. Recently, we just celebrated the International Day of the Boy Child. All right. There is a particular issue I've been talking about, and I will keep talking about it. This aspect of men dressing up as women in the name of comedy. And now you have your 5-year-old boy who is watching the comedy with you constantly at 5. Now, a 25-year-old man, all right, who may not even be gay. It's a normal, because most of what I hear people say, people are not gays, they are normal men, they have wives or they have girlfriends, they're not gay. They are just doing comedy. So as an adult, I might agree with that logic. I might understand that this man is not, this is a married man, he has a wife, he has kids, he's not gay. This is just comedy. But to a 5-year-old boy, that is another perspective of what acceptable manhood looks like. That's what we are telling the young boys. That, okay, so I'm 5 years old, I see a man, he has a beard, he looks like a man, but yet he has lipstick, he has a head tie, he's wearing high shoes, he's talking like a woman, and he's getting lots of likes and attention, and he's making a lot of money. So we are redefining what acceptable, manhood looks like, or what's acceptable for men, where we are redefining it by endorsing some of these things, thinking that is just comedy. That's not the problem. All right, it might be just comedy, but the problem is, what does my son, who is too young to differentiate between or to really understand that this is just comedy, this is just a skit, this is not really who this person is in real life, but they are getting the idea that it is okay for a man to dress like a woman. That's how we see so many of them coming up. And these are the subtle, things that messages that are being passed through some of these kids, this comedy stuff. That's the background message a young boy is getting. when they are their favorite comedian is one of those people that dresses as a woman. It is emasculating them. It's emasculating them because to a young boy, they can't tell the difference. To them, they see somebody who is doing something looking like what they should not be looking like, but everybody's accepting them. So that must mean that it's okay for me to present myself like that. This is just the beginning. We are seeing it more and more in Africa, where we're now seeing how, one of the things that it does is that, okay, in our time growing up, right, if any person, any man attempted to do what men are doing today online, where they're dressing like women and they are doing all of this comedy stuff, if a man attempted to do that, what will happen? There will be a public, they'll publicly reject you. They'll they'll probably jeer at you. They would make you feel ashamed. But today, it's gradually becoming normal and okay for a man to dress like that and walk on the streets. Even in Africa, you might actually succeed to walk and nobody, sees any problem with it. So we are gradually desensitizing ourselves, to gradually begin to embrace some of these things that came from the West. Some of these things that, that tells us that it's okay for men to behave like women. It's okay for men to behave like women. Again, I tell you, you don't need to be just like a woman to be funny. There are people who are acting trying to, do comedy or do skits where they are portraying the things that women do, and they are still full-blown men. They don't need to dress like women, and it's still funny. It's still funny. So assuming responsibility and giving blind trust. You're telling yourself that just because your child is good here, and good here, doing well in school, it automatically means that they'll be able to handle the responsibility of being on a social media space. Forgetting that it's a matter of skill, not goodness. You just trust that they'll be able to know how to behave themselves. The social media space is not the same as real life. Why? Because a child might think that just typing a comment is just a comment, not realizing the repercussions of what that comment can drive somebody to commit suicide. That's a huge responsibility. And most children don't understand that responsibility at that stage, at which most parents let them in. They're costly. All right? We trust that they'll just behave themselves. They will just know what to do. Why is it costly for you to assume responsibility and give blind trust? All right. Now, blind trust means what? When you start by thinking that my child is good, this is not the child that causes problem. The child does well in school. He's a good boy. He's a good girl. What that does to you, the parent, is that it causes you to let down your guard. You don't supervise. You don't check as much. Why? Because you're telling yourself that my child is a good person. My child is good. This child is not a problem person. I don't think my child can do that kind of thing. Assumption again. You're telling yourself that this child, you are assuming skills without having taught skills. You can't assume skills. You can't walk into a tailor shop and assume that take an order and sit down and begin to start sewing. Unfortunately, skills don't come that way. Skills must be learned. They must be built intentionally. All right. So it leaves children unprotected from the risks of being on social media spaces at a tender age with immature brains. It leaves them vulnerable to predators, right, that are there on those spaces waiting for, ignorant, vulnerable, naive people, naive children who are there unsupervised. So they are counting on you to trust in your child's goodness and leave your child unsupervised, leave your child helpless, just like throwing them in a river full of crocodiles. I shared a story about a parent who reached out to me about her, I think a 13-year-old girl that has been on social media for quite a while. She told me about how the daughter convinced her to letting her go on TikTok, letting her go on Instagram, on social media platforms. And according to her, she checks, So I asked her, how often do you check? She was like, well, when I remember. Do you know what it means when you remember? There are seasons of life where parents get really busy, get overwhelmed, that things like that easily fall into the cracks. So there's no system, there's no structure around the use of the device. Now, what happens during those periods? You might forget to check for 2 months. You might forget to check for a whole month, or even more. You might not even know how to supervise it. That's another issue. All right. One of the challenges parents are facing is how to guide children in a space where they themselves do not even have mastery. How can you guide a child when you yourself don't even have mastery of the space? You don't even know how to navigate that platform. You don't know how to navigate it. The parents who think that email is just this or that. So you can't even effectively supervise something if you don't even know how to navigate it. You don't know. You are supposed to be the guide, but you don't know. You're supposed to be the supervisor, but you don't know your way around the space. So it's going to be costly. Inevitably, it's going to be costly. Why? Because children are by nature curious. So it's not again about the goodness, but it's about your child understanding their limits, understanding, having the skills to know what to do when they come across different scenarios, different circumstances, and meet different people. All you tell them is, don't go and be watching bad things, so don't go and be talking, don't go and be doing this. What is that? I mean, that's like trying to use, a mosquito spray to kill a lion. Don't go and be doing bad things. Don't go and be watching bad. What are you calling bad things? What are you calling bad things? What are you calling? What are bad things? And for you, that's your preparation. You prepared the child. One of the things we do during the holiday program is that we actually drill parents on how to help children navigate, how to help children exist in a world where pornography is just one click away and yet be able to avoid it, preparing children for things like that. What do you say to a child? How do you teach a child about things like that? How do you help your child not to get addicted to this pornography in particular that is very easily to access today? One of the things I noticed today is the fact that the enemy has had a much easier way to lure people into pornography. Have you noticed that every time there is a scandal, right? So you have maybe at first was the scandal of I think there was the Baltazar scandal. There was the scandal of the secondary school students who were involved in an orgy, and then we had the scandal of the pastor's daughter recently. When you go to the comment section, people saying, "Send me the videos. Can I see the videos? I want to see." What do you want to see? That's pornography. So that's an indirect. Maybe you are not someone who consumes porn because you're like, hey, pastor's daughter is a lie. I must see to believe. What do you want to see? So you now forget that these are actually videos showing people, sexually involved or sexually involved in a sexual act. That's pornography. So it's an indirect way that people are getting pulled into it. So you find people saying, here is the link, you click and you can go and see the videos on Telegram. What are you going there to go and look for? What do you want to see? That's pornography. Now, what bothers me the most, right, is the fact that there are children who are also on this Facebook. There are kids who are there. And when these scandals come out, and the child will, hey, another child doing this, let me go and see. So that may be a child who has learned not to go to pornographic sites. But then, by the time the child clicks on that Telegram link, what happens? There's no ease of access. Bam, 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 it connects the child. You're on the forum. The videos are all there. The child is just going there to go and see what another child was doing. And now you have another mentee in the process. So it's costly when parents assume responsibility. Assume that because a child is now 18, it means that they are by age responsible. Responsibility is not a factor of age. There are 40-year-old irresponsible people. It's not you can be 50 and irresponsible. It's not a factor of age. Children don't become responsible because they have grown older. They become responsible because they have been trained and prepared to take responsibility. It's not a factor of age. So when you ask me again, what age should my child have a phone? It's not an age factor. It's not an age issue. Far from it. You can be 20 and not ready for a phone. There are adults today who are not ready for phones, who are already lost in social media. They can't even, pursue their job without being pulled by the social media distraction. They are constantly derailed by it. Many of us in particular are struggling today because we were not born in this social media era, right? It came and met us. And some of us have not even taken time to prepare. We don't have the skills that it takes, the self-discipline that it takes to navigate social media successfully without you getting pulled or losing too much of your time. There are adults today who are losing chunks of life. I'll not say time, I will say life, because they are struggling with social media addiction. They spend hours on TikTok as adults. So what about a 13-year-old? You're now expecting your child, who is 13, with an immature brain on top of that, to be able to use that phone responsibly, not get lost in it, and still focus on their studies. How? Without preparation, without you building skills, without you testing responsibility. Even the scripture says that the one who is faithful over little is the one that gets access to more. That should be the qualification for a child to move from this point to that point, and not age. Not age. All right. So blind trust will mean that you're not actively supervising, that you're thinking that your child is just, because they are 18, 15, they're a big boy now, they are ready to go on social media. After all their friends are there. You're making a mistake still. That's the kind of child who will go on there, start recording videos of themselves, bare chested with their celebs or whatever they call it, with their panties, and they're putting it on social media. Another one now is Snapchat. I can't tell you how many stories, how many parents have reached out to me about Snapchat, catching their daughters sending nude pictures to random men on Snapchat. Why? He asked me to snap and send. And the girl doesn't think there's something wrong. After all, it's somebody who likes me, is my boyfriend. They don't understand that boyfriend might leak those pictures of you online. And that is the beginning of a scar that you may never be able to heal from, that you may never be able to completely wipe away. Children are losing out precious childhood because parents are ignorant and they are refusing to learn. They're refusing to acknowledge that there is something to learn. It's not child's play. Raising a child today is not child's play. Raising a child that will be able to reach adulthood untainted, it has to be an intentional, thing. You can't just do it by chance, by guessing, by guesswork. So the next mistake, you must recognize that responsibility doesn't end with granting access. It requires continuous active involvement. So before you say, go to social media, you're also making the engagement as a parent to accompany that child, to also learn what you need to learn so you can be a guide to the child. Ignorance will never help you, and you will only make your child vulnerable to the dangers that are out there when it comes to social media. All right? So what you need to teach is self-regulation, self-control, the skills. What are the rules of the game? What can I not do? What is not okay? All right? What can't I share? That's another thing parents need to be teaching children about. What should you not be sharing on social media? The other day, my kids were shooting a video. They like shooting, videos of themselves doing different things. And one of them, was comfortable taking a video of himself with his panties on. And even though you could tell in all their innocence, they didn't see anything wrong with that. So that can tell you, how a child's mind is like. For me, I was already saying, hey, what are you doing behind the camera with just your panties on? But a child doesn't see it like that. They're not seeing it that way. All right? They are just caught up in the moment. They're just caught up in the moment. So mistake number 2, time is already, running out on us. Failing to prepare the child before giving them the access. Failing to prepare your child means that you are preparing the child to fail. You're preparing the child to fail. Social media is not a space that you just come there and you just play around. It's not a space for childish foolishness. It's not, because it doesn't forgive. Social media does not forgive anybody. It doesn't forgive you. It doesn't matter your age. Now, again, when I looked at the trends, the children that were trending on social media for different, negative stuff, one thing that burdened my heart was the fact that those who were tearing them down, for example, all right, and another thing I've noticed on social media is that some children are posted on social media. They might have a deformity, they might have some physical, body part that doesn't look a certain way, And you see people come under under that post and start trolling that child. What kind of head is that? What kind of so you can imagine what the kind of impact it can have on a child. Because on that space, no, there's no mercy there. There's no mercy for anybody. Nobody's there to have mercy on you. People will come there with anonymous profiles and come and type rubbish under people's, make damaging statements under those under in the comment section. So those girls who were trending on social media for sexual orgies and stuff like that, nobody bothered to care whether they're 15. People spoke, they said very ruthless things about them. And I don't blame them, right? Because when you choose to act as an adult, be ready for adult consequences. But then this is just a child. And that incident can actually usher that child to going down a spiral of completely losing themselves. Because once a child misses their way on social media, gets finds themselves in the wrong place and wrong time, nobody will care whether you're 2 years old. They will tear you apart. That's social media for you. So failing to prepare your child, it's a ruthless space. It's a space that is unforgiving of age. It doesn't matter your age, right? It can be very unforgiving, just like it can actually make you feel loved. You know that kind of love now. Social media will make you feel like you're the most loved person on earth until you mess up. Then you realize that the same people who were hailing you, the same people that will be shouting, crucify the person. That's social media for you. So we're letting our kids dive into social media without equipping them with the right tools. All right? We're not having the right conversations that we need to be having with them. Digital literacy. What does it mean? How do you tell that this site is safe over that site? How can you tell what can you or can you not say to a stranger online? What can you or can you not post about yourself, about your family? What are the rules of the game? People are getting sued now. There's a lot of lawsuits flying left and right because of social media. Just posting somebody's picture on social media can actually bring you, a lawsuit. Saying something careless on somebody's post can actually bring you a lawsuit. So it's getting more and more ruthless. It is not a space where children should be allowed to go there and just begin to explore without preparation. Because the repercussions can actually go as far as affecting the child's career tomorrow. There are people who were refused visas because of something they posted online. Go and do your research. There are people who were refused access to certain countries because of an idle comment they made on social media, even 10 years back. There are things some of us here have posted on social media that if you try to go to a certain place, they might tell you you're not welcome here because of something you said casually under somebody's post, thinking that it's just a comment. So without preparation, children don't learn how to critically assess what they see online. You must accompany your child and help them navigate the space safely. There is something called safety once a child is online. That's what digital parenting is all about. Providing guidance, training, and nurturing for your child to help them navigate the digital world without becoming a victim. Yes, your child can easily become a victim. It's about teaching children how to be in control instead of allowing it to control, their lives, their narrative, and their minds. Children can be tricked into oversharing personal information on social media, and it can cost even you, the parent, something. There are kids who have leaked information that has caused their parents to lose money. So before giving access, we must prepare our children. We must coach them. If you don't know how to do it, go and learn. All right? Sign up, take courses, learn. Learn about how to go about having these conversations. For those who are on the 1-year program, you can attest that these are things that we have learned in great detail. What to tell your child. There's actually a guide. I have one of my guides. You can actually get the guide to help you, know how to help a child navigate the media space. All right? Teach them the skills they need to help them navigate social media safely. And it starts with you supervising. You cannot assume that a child will be responsible. Responsibility must be tested before it is entrusted. Responsibility must be tested before it is entrusted. You can't just give it like that because the child is 13. Buying your child, a device that gives them access to the internet, to social media platforms, without you providing a structure that helps teach your child how to use that device the right way, is equal to giving your child a loaded gun. All right. Mistake number 3, failing to set and enforce boundaries. Remember the parent's story I shared? I asked her, how often do you check? And she said, well, when I remember. When you remember, that is just giving it to chance. You're just telling yourself, you know what, okay. It's just like, all right, let's put it on autopilot. Whenever I remember, I'm going to check. And lo and behold, with my insistence, this parent actually went to go and check. And what she found was shocking. All right? What she found was shocking. The child was already venturing in a dangerous direction, trying to meet up, engaging with strangers and things like that. People were far, far, far beyond the child's age. So these are not things you want to do casually. Sometimes the cost is too great that it's not something that you would want to pay. The cost is great. Ask the parent whose child has become hooked on pornography, they'll tell you. It is costly because that child will really never be the same again. Now we are talking of healing when you could have been talking of prevention altogether. Prevention, they say, is better than cure. So, failing to set and enforce boundaries. What are the rules? What is the structure around the use or access to these platforms? What are the rules? What happens when those rules are broken? What can the child do or cannot do? What can't the child do? How are you helping your child navigate the space safely? These are things that we can't teach in detail on during sessions like this because they are too wide, they are too broad. That's why taking courses helps you. So you do not establish, there are no clear guidelines about when, about where, about how social media, there is a how to use social media. If a child does not have a purpose for being on that space, they have no business being there, including for us adults. Why are you there? What difference are you making there? What takes you to social media? Is it just to go and consume, or are you adding value to the space? We want to raise children who have a value-adding mindset. When you raise a child who understands that they can access that space when they are in a place where they are ready to add value, then you realize that helping a child navigate becomes a lot more. It's a whole different conversation altogether. Because your child is going there with a purpose and not just to be a consumer. But then when you let a 13-year-old go in there, 13-year-old does not even yet understand, what the implications of their actions on that space is about. What are you doing? What are you doing? So without clear boundaries, what starts as a few minutes of entertainment can become a lifetime of regret. When the child has really put out something out there that they should not have been putting out. I talked about the case of the young man, about 15 years old, whom I came across this young man when I was one of this when I was working at the clinic, and he was telling me about how he has some platform where they buy pictures of him. What all he has to do is just to take different pictures of himself, upload on the app, and he gets paid per picture. He's 15. What if those pictures start suggesting, just take a picture with you of your pant? Once you started testing the money at 15, it might be difficult to judge that this picture I'm sharing can actually, be a source of compromise for me tomorrow. Why? Because he's focused on the honey coming out from there. That's his focus at that point. And the sad thing was the fact that his family was encouraging him to do this. But nobody asked him, was anybody checking? Nobody was checking the kinds of pictures he was uploading on this app. They were only checking how much is coming out of it. So this monetization thing is actually going to be one of the biggest reasons why the social media space tomorrow is going to be a space that will be completely out of control. Twitter is already out of control. A space without any kind of censorship. And yet there are children on that space as well. There are kids on that space as well. There are teenagers on that space. So without clear boundaries, what starts off as just fun can actually lead to a lifetime of regret, right? Children become overly engaged. They just become lost in the whole thing and they don't know how to find their way out. So you have to set and consistently enforce boundaries. That's critical. All right. How will this device be used? How will my child navigate this space? What is my child doing on there? How can you keep track of your child's footprints? Not because you want to be, a detective, but because you understand that your child needs guidance. What they call guided exposure must be in place at the very beginning to help prepare your child for this very heavy responsibility of owning space on social media. It's a huge responsibility. It's huge. Even for me as an adult, it's pretty huge. It's huge. All right. The fourth mistake is failing to build systems based on values. Remember, I've said that monetization will be one of the, is the doorway to a whole lot more of crazy things on the social media space. We have not even seen crazy yet. The kinds of things people will start doing on social media, if you think it's bad now, wait until 5, 10 years from now. The fact that money has been added to the equation makes people to be completely oblivious of their values, including parents. I saw a video of a parent who was actually coercing their child to join them in doing a video. The child said no, and the parent was mad. So I pay your fees, I take care of you. And yet I said, just come and shoot only content. And you're telling me you're tired. What kind of child are you? Start blackmailing the child. Why? Content. It is consuming people. Don't allow your child to be a victim of that system. Allow your child to be a child for as long as possible. That's going to be one of the biggest gifts your children will thank you for tomorrow. The fact that you gave room for them to just be their age. There is a lot of pressure on the social media space that a child should be allowed to just enjoy their childhood. That pressure is too much for a child to begin to bear. The pressure to look a certain way, the pressure to be a certain way, to belong to a certain clique, to have a certain number of likes. Pressures. So many pressures. So without you having systems, your children may end up doing things just for the sake of money. And by so doing, they will sell their integrity. They will sell their privacy. They will sell their values even just for money. So there must be lines. When you start preparing children, by enforcing these boundaries, it helps the child learn to understand that there are rules. You can't just do anyhow. All right. When a child is being prepared in this manner, when they become an adult, they understand their limits. There are people who don't have limits on social media anymore, all in the name of monetization. It's so sad that 50 years later, those videos will still be there. Your grandchildren will come and see you in that way. So without such systems, children end up just copying all the behaviors, copying the mindsets, following the trends without asking questions. How does this stain my image? How does it impact the kind of person I'm trying to become? You must raise a child that can ask questions. All right? We need to build systems that help our children learn to navigate the space led by their values. Because if not, money will make them change their mind. We have young girls today who are showing everything on social media. Why? It gets money. It's monetized. The more views, the more you're paid. So that means I need to do whatever it takes, and parents are endorsing it. After all, it's just a kind of work. It's just social media. We don't understand it. It was not in our time. Oh, that's true. But then there are things your children are deciding to do today that will harm them tomorrow, and they need you in those moments to be the parent, not their enabler. And finally, failing to build capacity instead of practicing deprivation. That's a mistake. Failing to build capacity is a mistake. There are many parents who are trying, when they hear things like this about social media, about screens and how it affects children, out of fear, coupled with their ignorance, their strategy is to just completely exclude the child. If you do that, you are still, doing a disservice to your child. Why? Because a digital native needs to be prepared. Because no matter what they do, they are going to meet and interact with the social media and different digital devices. And for a child in this digital age to be unskillful at navigating those spaces is a big limitation to their potential. It's a big limitation because in the years to come, there will be almost nothing you can do as far as work is concerned without competence with digital devices. We can still afford today to see people who have businesses and they're not even online. But in the years to come, everything will be digital. To the point where for you to raise a human being that is not able to navigate, you have just cut off one of their legs. Literally. Because the child that will thrive tomorrow is the child that will learn to use devices to their advantage instead of allowing devices use them. That will be the advantage. A child that can focus on a task and not be distracted because the distraction is going to be overwhelming. So raising a child that can focus even in the midst of devices will be a plus. Those are the things that will cause people to stand out tomorrow because everybody will be distracted. So the one who will be able to focus in spite of all the distractions, who can be able to sit a task from start to finish without getting distracted by social media, that's an advantage. That's what we need to start teaching children today, not tomorrow. Those are some of the benefits of being purposeful in your parenting, of having the knowledge that you need to help your children navigate. It helps you do these things for your children. So build capacity instead of cutting the child off completely. So when I say a child, it's not about just giving your child phones, giving access to social media, but I'm also saying you must take it as a part of your parenting training, parenting preparation for your child, to teach them progressively until they are ready before giving them access. But then you have to be teaching. So not giving access doesn't mean allow the child to just go and sit there. Another thing you must consider is that when we fail to equip children with skills when it comes to social media, because we're telling ourselves they don't yet have phones, they will only have phones 10 years from now, and yet we are not teaching them. We forget that these children who might not be allowed to have phones in our home have friends whose parents gave them phones 3, 4, 5 years ago, and they are on social media. And the things that you were thinking you're protecting your child from, they are now seeing it on their friend's phone, on their classmate's phone, and still without the preparation that they need to help them make the right decisions. So it might not even be the device you buy for your child that ends up being the source of their corruption. It might be the device that another person in their circle brings, gives them access to it, and with their unskillfulness, they meet destruction. That's the world we are living in today. So it's not enough to say my child is in a bubble, my child never goes out. I never give my child the food. That's not the point. Depriving children and locking them up will never be the solution. The solution can never be isolation, but preparation. That's the solution. All right? That's the solution. What can you do if you go somewhere and someone is watching something on their phone? How can you conduct yourself? You need to prepare kids for things like that. So when you have the understanding that there is no bubble on this earth that can keep your child safe, keep your child in a world that they will never face challenges. It doesn't exist. You start changing your approach and start being proactive by preparing your child to face and successfully, overcome those challenges that they're going to face. That is what gives you the advantage. All right. So instead of practicing deprivation out of fear, we must empower our children by building their digital capacity. So you want to practice what we call guided exposure. All right. You decide on the age when, getting access to social media is allowed in your family. Decide on it in advance. Now, this is one, I'm just going to share this tip with you because these are things I teach on the platform for parents who are taking the courses. So I'm going to share with you for free. One of the ways as a parent, you can be able to navigate pressures, right? Different pressures you're going to encounter, whether from your child, from onlookers, is by preparing how you will respond before it actually happens. Now, one of the things that you're going to probably face as pressure from your children will be the issue of all my friends have a phone, I'm the only one who doesn't have a phone. I need to have a phone. Most parents get pressured at that point and they just give in because the child is relentless, especially if the child is like me. I'm the kind of person, I don't give up. If I want something, I'm going to pursue you until I get it. If this door closes, I go around and find the next door. That's the kind of child I was, and that's the kind of person I still am today. So there is no is not really an answer. There's always a way around it. So we find it. We refuse to give up until we accomplish what we set out to accomplish. Now there are kids like that, you know. So you're going to tell that child, oh no, no, I'm not going to buy you a phone yet. The child keeps asking you why, why? All my friends have it. They will pressure you to the point where you're going to crack, and then you give the phone. But the question will be, you've given the phone to the child. Was the child ready to handle the responsibility? That is the most important question. Was the child ready? So one of the ways you can avoid these pressures is by having a plan. Now, the family media plan is a document that helps you be able to anticipate, prepare both yourself and your children for the challenges that you're going to face in while parenting in the digital world. That's what the family media plan is. It helps communicate to your children, to your family members, how devices are meant to be used in your home and all of those things. So it's a guide that every parent, I encourage you to get a copy. All right, it's going to help you tremendously. But I was saying how you navigate pressures in those periods when your child starts pressuring you to have what their friends already have. One of the ways you can prepare and navigate those periods successfully is by establishing a plan ahead of time. For example, in my home, my kids know the age at which they can have a phone because we are already working towards a particular age. There is an age, to get your first Bible. There is an age to get your phone. There is an age to get a laptop, which comes even before you get a phone. My kids will get laptops before they get phones. All right. So now, when you have a plan that you have worked on as a family with your children, it's easier for your child to know what to answer their friends when they start pressuring them. I may not have a phone now because the child knows when they're going to have it. And the child trusts that you're going to keep your word. It helps the child stay grounded. We have kids today who can't tolerate peer pressure. They want this because their friend has it. They want that because their friend has it. We need to teach delayed gratification. Very important. All right, so each of these mistakes has far-reaching implications on children's social development, on their mindset, their psyche, and all of those things. Next week, we're going to talk about something else completely. So if you have a question, thank you for being here with me. If you have a question, feel free to ask in the comments. I'm going to answer before I shut down. We have gone 17 minutes above time. Any questions, please? What have you learned in this session? What has been the highlight for you? Did you tag or invite anybody to this session? Please make sure you do so. All right. What has been the highlight for you or the highlights for you in this particular session? What have you learned? All right. What has been the high point for you? I see quite a few number of people here. Thank you for standing by until the end of the session. Have you been challenged? Is there something you've learned? Something that has changed or shifted your perspective a little bit? What was the high point for you? Or if there are no questions, there are no chunks of life. If there are no questions, if there are no concerns, I will have to shut down for today. Thank you so much for being here. I think if there are no questions, there are no concerns. Feel free to drop your concerns, your questions, even later after I shut down the live sessions. You can always catch a replay, right? You are still free to share the link even after the session ends because it's going to give access to the replay for anyone who wants to watch. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you again next Thursday. Bye.